In a vast, empty cathedral, Flora Caffey stands alone at the altar. As the new princess of Pedania, she's meant to be the empire's future empress, but the wedding guests are unimpressed. They mock her plain looks and her trembling, doubting she'll last a week. She overhears them, thinking being sent away would be a relief. Her fear is reserved for her future husband, the murderous tyrant who built his throne on a mountain of bodies. Knowing she means nothing to such a man, she resolves to do anything to survive. The emperor is late. The nobles whisper amongst themselves as Flora's knees tremble at the altar. Count Karl fumes, convinced the emperor's lateness is a calculated insult. Suddenly, a cold voice dismisses his concerns. Emperor Otto Sionia has arrived. He walks down the aisle with an imposing air, stating that if Pedania causes trouble, he will simply make them submit again. He challenges the count, asking if he doubts his power. Terrified, the noble immediately retracts his words. Otto reaches the altar, barely glancing at Flora before declaring that the ceremony will now begin. The priest's words about a happy life ring hollow. Flora knows she isn't a bride, she's a hostage. Her thoughts drift back to the maids in Pedania, who whispered about the orphan substitute being sent to her doom, speculating she wouldn't survive 3 days with the tyrant emperor. Snapped back to reality, Otto coldly demands her hand for the ring. He slides it on carefully, his gloved fingers avoiding any contact with her skin. This silent gesture confirms her worth in his eyes. Absolutely nothing. As Otto places the ring on her finger, his gloved hand momentarily snags. For a second, the fearsome emperor seems clumsy, leaving Flora confused. The priest then announces the vow kiss, and panic seizes her. She quickly blurts out that he doesn't have to force himself. Ignoring her completely, Otto lifts her veil and leans in. Flora freezes, bracing for contact, but he simply pulls back, leaving her untouched. The public display was enough for him, and Flora is left standing in stunned silence at the altar. Instead of a grand kiss, Otto kneels and formally kisses Flora's gloved hand. He then rises, calls for applause from the crowd, and immediately turns to leave. Flora watches him go, stunned but also a little relieved. At least she wasn't dealt with on the spot. As the emperor walks down the aisle, he suddenly stops. He catches a unique scent wafting from his new bride, one that makes him pause. A flicker of intrigue crosses his face before he composes himself and walks away, leaving her utterly alone. In her new chambers, a maid tells Flora to rest before leaving her alone. The reality of her wedding night sinks in as she sees the delicate nightgown laid out on the bed. Flora's mind races. She knows the emperor is supposed to visit and she must make a good impression. She touches the bed, amazed by how soft it is, a simple luxury she's never known. She lies down for just a second to savor the feeling, but a sudden noise from the hallway makes her sit bolt upright, her momentary peace shattered. An hour passes. Flora, now dressed for the night, accepts that the emperor isn't coming. This brings a small wave of relief, mixed with deep uncertainty. Spotting an ornate box, she opens it to find a delicate handkerchief, wondering if she should gift it to him. Her mind flashes back to her wedding day. She had confessed her terror to Queen Mila, saying this marriage felt like a death sentence. The queen sternly reminded her that their kingdom's survival depended on this union and that she must hold her head high as the new empress. Remembering Queen Mila's command to fulfill her duty, Flora resolves to find Otto. She decides to offer him the handkerchief as a wedding present, hoping it's an appropriate gesture. Stepping into his dark study, she's met with a chaotic scene. A medicine bottle is shattered on the floor. Otto suddenly appears, desperately searching for it. He clutches his head in agony, screaming at her to get out. As he looks up, his eyes glow a dangerous red, revealing the terrifying nature of his affliction. Otto is trapped in a violent hallucination, tormented by voices calling him a murderer. As darkness and skeletal figures surround him, he clutches his chest in agony. Suddenly, a sweet floral scent cuts through the nightmare. The horrifying visions are replaced by a peaceful memory of a smiling, red-haired woman in a field. He whispers a name from his past, snapping back to reality just in time. He looks up to see Flora standing in his wrecked study, asking if anyone is there. Completely unaware, she just calmed his inner torment. A cool night breeze drifted into Flora's room as she stood by the window. Suddenly, a pair of arms wrapped around her from the shadows, causing her to cry out in surprise. It was Otto. He pressed his face against her hair, finding immediate, soothing relief in her scent. Completely stunned, Flora demanded to know who was holding her. Instead of answering, Otto turned her around to face him. Her eyes widened in terror as she recognized the Emperor, who stared back with an unreadable, intense gaze. Frozen in terror, Flora realized it was the Emperor holding her. His hand clamped over her mouth as his grip tightened, and her mind raced with a single thought. He was going to kill her. The fear was too much, and the world began to fade to black. Just as she fainted, Otto caught her. He looked down at the unconscious woman in his arms, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. This was the Princess of Pedania. Without hesitation, he scooped her up and carried her inside. Otto lays the unconscious Flora on the bed, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He wonders how he could have mistaken her for Pamia, a woman who passed away 10 years ago. Sitting beside her, he's startled when Flora whimpers in her sleep, pleading for her life while instinctively grabbing his shirt. He questions why she would approach him if she was so clearly terrified. But as he hesitates, he catches her scent again. It's the same alluring fragrance from their wedding, the one that brings him an unfamiliar sense of peace. As Otto sat beside the unconscious Flora, he found himself instinctively leaning closer, drawn in by her calming scent. He suddenly pulled back, questioning his own actions. He knew she was afraid of him, yet he felt this strange pull. Otto concluded it had to be her alluring fragrance. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the room as a maid opened the curtains. Flora awoke alone, confused. She looked around the unfamiliar but luxurious room, clutching her head as she tried to remember the previous night. She recalled going to the Emperor's quarters, but the rest was a blur. Flora wakes up confused, wondering if the events of last night were just a terrible dream. She dismisses the thought, vividly remembering the Emperor's cold hands around her neck. But if it was real, why was she still alive? Amidst her spiraling thoughts, a maid named Vichy greets her. Flora learns that the Emperor himself carried her back to the room. Vichy gushes about how gentle and romantic the whole scene was. Flora is stunned. The terrifying encounter was real, but someone saw it as a fairy tale moment. Flora hides under the covers, completely flustered. So, it wasn't a dream. The Emperor really did carry her. Meanwhile, in his study, Otto is being treated by his physician, Cecil Brittany. The Emperor presents a stunning set of blue jewels. Cecil assumes they're for Lady Evelyn, but Otto clarifies they are for the Empress. He notes the gems match her eyes perfectly. As he gets dressed, Otto gives Cecil 2 orders: deliver the gift to Flora and, more importantly, investigate what kind of incense or perfume she uses. As Vichy finishes her hair, Flora remains lost in thought, still embarrassed about the previous night. Catching her reflection, she's so stunned she can barely recognize herself. Vichy mistakes her surprise for disapproval and quickly offers to change the style. Flora immediately reassures the maid, praising her incredible skill. Delighted, Vichy grabs her hands and vows to always highlight her beauty. This genuine kindness makes Flora's secret weigh heavily on her. She imagines Vichy's disappointment upon learning she isn't a real princess, and her happy expression fades into sadness. Vichy sincerely offers to be a friend, wishing for Flora's happiness. Touched by the kind words, Flora confesses that she fainted from fear upon seeing the Emperor, certain he must hate her. Realizing Flora doesn't know about Otto's condition, Vichy quickly reassures her. She explains that Otto isn't easily angered and that his fearsome reputation is a strength for the Empire. In fact, many others have fainted just from looking at him. Flora feels slightly better as Vichy leaves to get some jewelry. Flora thinks about how no one enjoys being feared. She realizes everyone simply wants to be loved. A vision of Otto's lonely childhood appears, people whispering that he was a monster, someone to be avoided at all costs. Flora understands his pain, recognizing her own past in his isolation. Suddenly, Vichy returns, apologizing for not finding any jewelry. Their conversation is interrupted by a man named Cecil. He calmly explains that the Emperor sent him to perform a checkup on Flora after last night's incident, presenting a lavish gift box as well. Cecil presents the Emperor's gift, opening the box to reveal a stunning jewelry set with brilliant blue gems. Flora is speechless, asking if the lavish present is truly for her. Her maid, Vichy, points out excitedly that the jewels perfectly match her outfit. Still blushing, Flora timidly asks if the Emperor said anything else. Cecil smiles warmly, relaying Otto's message. He hoped she would like them, as they share the same beautiful color as her eyes. Flora is overwhelmed with relief, realizing he isn't angry with her after all. As Cecil departs, he is promptly intercepted by a noblewoman named Lady Evelyn. She immediately questions his visit to the Empress's chambers, noting the Emperor's apparent concern. Cecil calmly assures her it was merely a routine checkup, a formality of the alliance. Seemingly satisfied, she thanks him for his hard work. Later, Cecil delivers his report to Otto. He confirms that Flora had no incense or perfume on her whatsoever. The realization dawns on them. The incredible, soothing scent is completely natural to her. Cecil reports to Emperor Otto, confirming the Empress's soothing scent is entirely natural. The news startles Otto, who recalls her fragrance from their recent encounter. Cecil continues, informing him that Flora has requested an audience. Otto is skeptical, remembering how she fainted from fear the night before. The physician then reveals her purpose. She wants to return a gift. Growing serious, Cecil warns Otto to be cautious, reminding him that Flora is still a princess from an enemy nation and could be a potential threat to his safety. Despite Cecil's warning, Emperor Otto remains unfazed. A smirk plays on his lips as he considers the situation, remarking that Flora's potential schemes would only make things more interesting. He confidently questions what a seemingly frail woman could possibly do to him. Later, in her chambers, Flora prepares for the audience. Her maid, Vichy, presents her with a stunning blue gown, gushing over how beautiful she looks. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, Flora worries that the elegant dress is far too fancy for the meeting. Vichy insists the fancy gown is just right, reminding Flora that she's having lunch with the Emperor. Still, Flora is anxious. She's surprised Otto agreed to meet so quickly after she fainted in front of him. Seeing her worried face, Vichy asks if she's still afraid. Flora explains it's not fear. She feels she can't repay his expensive gift with something of equal value. To ease her mind, Vichy presents a small box containing a handkerchief Flora sewed herself, reassuring her that the sincere gesture is what truly matters. Flora holds the handkerchief, wondering if the handmade gift is too plain. Just then, her maid Vichy gets a wonderful idea, whispering it into Flora's ear. Flora's face lights up, but she quickly worries that this new plan will delay lunch and anger the Emperor. Vichy confidently reassures her, explaining that the workaholic Otto skips meals all the time and won't mind a slight delay. However, in the dining room, Otto sits stone-faced, impatiently tapping his fingers on the table. It seems Vichy was very wrong. Flanked by his physician Cecil and guard Captain Elon, Otto waited at the dining table, his patience wearing thin. He irritably asked why Flora wasn't there yet. Cecil tried to smooth things over, explaining that her maid said she was on her way and suggesting her frail health was slowing her down. Otto wasn't buying it. He was certain she was just stalling because she was afraid of him. Right as his frustration grew, a servant swung open the doors to announce that Her Majesty, the Empress, had finally arrived. Otto's irritation vanished as Flora stepped into the room. She gracefully curtsied, offering a formal greeting and wishing glory upon the Empire. The men at the table, Otto, Cecil, and Elon, were completely silent, just staring at her. Confused by their frozen looks, Flora began to worry she'd made a mistake. Breaking the quiet, Otto leaned forward, stating he heard she had a gift for him. Caught off guard, she nervously confirmed that she did, her face flushing as all eyes remained on her. The heavy silence made Flora's face burn. She stood frozen until Otto let out an irritated sigh. He cut through the awkwardness with a simple command, telling her to bring him the gift. With her heart pounding, Flora began the long walk across the room. Every eye followed her, especially the guard captain's. He watched her every move with deep suspicion, his hand resting firmly on the hilt of his sword. This was clearly not going to be a friendly lunch. Otto's expression darkened as he leaned forward, demanding to know what she had brought. Terrified, Flora could barely get the words out. She quickly presented her gift, a small bouquet of flowers she'd picked from the garden, wrapped in a handkerchief she had sewn herself. She nervously explained she had planned to give it to him the previous night, but things got complicated. Admitting it was a simple offering, she added that the sudden wedding left her with no time to prepare anything else. Otto just stared at the humble gift, completely silent. As the silence stretched, a sliver of hope grew in Flora. He hadn't harmed her, so perhaps they could actually get along. She timidly asked if he would accept her gift. While his aide looked on with a tired expression, Otto accepted the humble bouquet. He stared at the blossoms, noting that he hadn't realized the season for garden flowers had arrived. Flora eagerly confirmed their beauty, but Otto simply stated he hadn't found the time to look. His expression gave nothing away, leaving her to wonder what he truly thought. Flora nervously explained what she'd heard from her maid. Since Nordvane was a northern country, its spring season was very short. Knowing he must be busy, she still gathered her courage and asked if he would like to go see the flowers with her sometime. Otto's eyes widened slightly. For a brief moment, he seemed to see a memory of a red-haired woman holding a similar bouquet. As the image faded, his expression became unreadable. He looked down, his hand clenching into a tight fist by his side. Later, during a quiet dinner, Flora thought she saw something impossible, a faint smile on Otto's face. She quickly dismissed it as her imagination. Otto broke the silence, holding the bouquet she'd given him. He remarked that since her homeland had flowers year-round, she must be tired of them. Before she could answer, he looked directly at her. He asked if, even so, she still wanted to see the flowers with him. Overjoyed, Flora eagerly agreed, telling him she'd be happy to go whenever he was free. A slight smile graces Otto's lips. He confirms that they will go see the flowers together when he has some free time. Flora is completely stunned, briefly wondering if he actually just laughed before dismissing the thought as impossible. Later, her attention is captured by an exquisite meal. The imperial head chef personally presents her with traditional Nordvane desserts, expressing what an honor it is to serve her. Awed by the beautiful fruit tart before her, Flora graciously thanks him, ready to enjoy the special treat. Flora takes a delicate bite of the fruit tart, her face lighting up with genuine delight. She declares it delicious, much to the joy of the proud chef and staff. Across the table, Otto watches her, his expression unreadable as he sips his wine. He recalls the earlier tension. If she had pulled out any kind of weapon instead of flowers, his guard would have ended her on the spot. But now, she's chatting happily. He can't decide if she is unexpectedly bold or just completely oblivious to the danger she was in. Flora realizes she's been so focused on the delicious food that she's forgotten to make conversation. Just as she's about to speak, the chef excitedly presents one last dish. It's a traditional Nordvane jelly, perfectly crafted into a cute shape that took him months to master. As Flora takes a bite, the familiar taste triggers a powerful memory of the former queen, Mila. Suddenly overwhelmed with emotion, tears spring to Flora's eyes. This shocks the proud chef, who looks on in complete confusion. Otto just watches, his expression unreadable. The chef bows deeply, apologizing for upsetting Flora with the dessert. He assumes the traditional flavor was too much for her foreign palate. Waving her hands, Flora quickly reassures him. She explains with a tearful smile that it was actually so delicious it moved her. The chef is overjoyed by the high praise. Across the table, Otto watches silently. Flora considers talking to him again, but decides against it, thinking he prefers the quiet. Unseen, his aide Cecil watches the awkward couple, wondering if they'll ever learn to talk to each other. Noticing the silent deadlock, Cecil steps forward. He apologizes for overstepping but asks Otto what he was trying to say to the Empress earlier. Flora is stunned, realizing he's helping her. Internally, she remembers wanting to ask Otto to the balcony. Playing the perfect wingman, Cecil informs her that the Emperor's schedule is clear and suggests they take a stroll in the garden. Otto takes a slow sip from his glass and agrees. He then sets his glass down, turning his full attention to Flora to address her directly. Otto turns his full attention to Flora, extending a hand across the table. He formally asks if she will come with him. Flora's eyes widen in surprise, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. After a moment of stunned silence, she places her hand in his, warmly telling him she would be honored. Meanwhile, in that very same garden, Lady Evelyn is tending to the roses as her maid leans in to whisper some fresh gossip. A sly smile appears on Evelyn's face as she asks if the rumor is really true. As they stroll through the sunlit garden, Flora is shocked that Otto would actually agree to look at flowers. Her surprise soon gives way to distress. Otto sets a brisk pace, and she struggles to keep up, her feet aching with every hurried step. A voice from her past echoes in her mind, telling her to endure the pain silently. Gritting her teeth, she forces herself forward. Just as she feels her resolve crumbling, Otto stops dead in his tracks and turns to face her, his expression unreadable. Flora's cheeks flush as she hurries to match Otel's relentless pace. Her feet ache terribly, but she pushes the pain down, determined not to complain. Abruptly, he halts their walk. Confused, she asks what the matter is. Otel's sharp gaze drops, taking in her pained expression. Flora quickly forces a smile, apologizing for being slow and urging him to go on. He looks at her for a long moment, then simply hums in thought, bringing their stroll to a complete stop beside her. As they stand in the quiet garden, Otel suddenly slows down, matching his long strides to Flora's. She glances at him, stunned by the small gesture. A warm feeling spreads through her as she realizes he noticed her struggle. Maybe he was kinder than the rumors suggested. Flora allows herself to hope for more peaceful moments like this together. Just as they begin walking in a comfortable rhythm, a bright voice calls out Otel's name. Lady Evelyn appears, waving enthusiastically and breaking their quiet bubble. Lady Evelyn approaches, greeting Otel with surprising familiarity. She quickly catches herself, remembering his new title as emperor, and launches into a very formal salutation. Unimpressed, Otel cuts her off, telling her that's enough and to raise her head. Flora watches the scene unfold, concluding this woman must be someone of very high status to be so comfortable around him. Brushed off by the emperor, Lady Evelyn finally turns her curious gaze toward Flora, directly questioning who she is. Flustered by the direct question, Flora nervously clutches her dress. Before she can speak, Lady Evelyn's eyes widen in recognition, asking if she is indeed Princess Flora from Pedania. Flora shyly agrees. Evelyn smiles, introducing herself as the Duke's daughter and a childhood friend of the Emperor. Suddenly, Otel's cold voice cuts in. He commands Evelyn to address Flora by her proper title, Her Imperial Majesty. Flora tries to defuse the situation, saying she doesn't mind. Evelyn just links her arm with Flora's, noting how kind she is, and nothing like the Emperor. As they stood together, Lady Evelyn's gaze fell on Flora's chest. She complimented the lovely necklace, pointedly asking if it was a gift from him. Flustered, Flora's hand drifted up to the pendant. Evelyn smiled, saying it was a relief to see Otel treating her kindly, because he had always been so cold to her. Suddenly, the Emperor's furious voice cut in from a distance. He demanded to know how long Evelyn planned to keep talking such nonsense, his patience clearly at its end. Evelyn winks at Flora, whispering that the Emperor is angry again. Mistaking their bickering for intimacy, Flora hopes she can one day joke with him so freely. But Evelyn isn't done. She asks Otel why he's taking a walk now when he always ignored her invitations, accusing him of being cold on purpose. That's the last straw for Otel. He warns her not to say another word before forcefully pushing her away. As Evelyn stumbles back, she exclaims it was just a joke before quickly changing the topic to politics. Back in her room, Flora's maid Vichy helped her change, noticing a small, crimson stain on her dress. She cried out in alarm, asking if the Empress was hurt. Flora calmly assured her she was fine, but Vichy pointed to the blood, refusing to believe her. Flora explained it was just a blister from her shoes. To her surprise, Vichy's eyes filled with tears. When Flora asked what was wrong, the devoted maid began to apologize, devastated that her Empress had to endure even the slightest amount of pain. Flora tried to comfort her maid, insisting it wasn't Vichy's fault. She chose the shoes herself. But the tearful maid refused to be consoled and ran to get help. Flora was stunned by how deeply Vichy cared. Just then, the imperial physician, Cecil, rushed in, asking if she was injured. Flora downplayed it as a simple blister, but Cecil took it seriously. He knelt before her and politely asked if he could examine the area, cutting through the panic with his calm professionalism. Cecil carefully examined Flora's foot, assuring her he would be gentle. He noted the inflammation was quite bad, explaining she had hurt the same spot before it could fully heal. He informed her that he would need to apply disinfectant now. Flora nervously agreed. He warned her it might sting, and she winced as the medicine touched her skin. She thought his focused care was kind. However, a different thought immediately followed, beginning with a quiet apology in her mind. Cecil's gentle demeanor vanished, replaced by serious concern. He asked Flora why she didn't say anything about the pain. Looking away, she insisted that she hadn't thought it was a big deal. The physician, however, blamed himself, apologizing for suggesting she go on a walk with the Emperor. Flustered, Flora quickly denied it was his fault. An awkward silence settled between them as he finished tending to her foot. Meanwhile, Otto sat at his desk, unable to focus, the news of Flora's injury clearly weighing on him. In his office, Otto listens to the physician's report. Cecil explains Flora's injury is serious, showing signs of a bacterial infection that requires extended rest. Furious, Otto slams his pen on the desk, wondering why she hid her pain. Cecil confirms she refused to explain. Haunted by the memory of her gentle face, Otto grows more agitated, unable to understand why she wouldn't confide in him. 5 days later, Flora is seen resting by a window, her feet heavily bandaged and propped up. Resting by the window, Flora tells herself Cecil exaggerated with the bandages on her foot. Her mind wanders to Otto, wondering what he's been doing for the past 5 days. She imagines him in the garden with Evelyn, concluding he must find someone as boring as her easy to forget. A wave of sadness washes over her, but it can't hide her true feelings. More than anything, she just wants to see him. At that very moment, Otto walks with purpose down the corridor, heading straight for her room. Emperor Otto moves through the palace, his expression grim. The maids watch him go, whispering that he's heading to the office again. They wonder if he plans on skipping sleep tonight as well, noting he's been in a foul mood for days. They agree to be extremely careful when attending to him. Once in his office, Otto throws his coat aside and slumps into his chair. He immediately looks to Cecil, his only question. How is the Empress doing? Cecil reports that Flora is resting quietly in her room. Otto immediately asks if the treatments are still ongoing. Sensing the Emperor's deep concern, Cecil suggests he should just visit her himself. Otto scoffs at the idea, angrily denying that he's worried about her. He fumes silently, annoyed that Flora hiding her pain now makes him look like a bully. Despite this defensive reaction, he clears his throat and reluctantly agrees to go, pretending it's only because Cecil is insisting. Meanwhile, Flora sits by her window, lost in thought. Her maid, Vichy, notices her solemn mood and drapes a shawl over her shoulders, asking if she's feeling down. Flora quietly admits she is. To cheer her up, the energetic maid offers a piggyback ride outside for some fresh air. Amused, Flora questions if the delicate-looking Vichy can even carry her. Vichy flexes confidently, insisting she's much stronger than she appears. Seeing how earnest her maid is, Flora can't help but smile, not wanting to turn down the kind gesture. Despite her reassurances, Vichy's strength fails the moment Flora climbs onto her back. The maid's legs tremble, and Flora instantly regrets the idea. With a short cry, they both lose their balance and collapse onto the floor in a heap. Just then, the door opens to reveal Otto and his guard, who stop dead in their tracks, staring at the chaotic scene. A horrified Vichy scrambles to apologize, only to look up and see the Emperor himself standing over them with a stony, unreadable expression. Otto's cold voice fills the room as he asks what the two are doing. Flora looks up, stunned to see the Emperor standing over her. He ignores the panicked maid, grabbing Flora's wrist and asking how long she intended to sit on the ground. As he pulls her closer, her familiar scent seems to soothe his frustration. Without another word, he lifts her effortlessly into his arms. Carrying her away, he sharply orders his guard and the maid to leave them alone, leaving everyone frozen in shock. Leaving the bewildered guard and maid behind, Otto carries Flora through the halls and into a bedroom. He gently places her down on the soft bed, her heart pounding from the suddenness of it all. Before she can collect her thoughts, he leans over her, his red eyes fixed on hers with an unnerving intensity. Cutting through the quiet tension, he speaks, admitting that something has been weighing on his mind lately. Flora stares up at him, trapped by his gaze, wondering what he could possibly mean. Otto pins her down, his voice dangerously low. He makes it clear her life is on the line if she doesn't answer him honestly. Flora freezes, her mind screaming that he's discovered her true identity. As she trembles, Otto suddenly realizes her calming scent has vanished completely. Ignoring this, he grabs her jaw, reminding her of his brutal reputation. He demands to know if fear is why she's been so silent, leaving her unable to explain that he's misunderstanding everything. Otto's real concern took her by surprise. He revealed he knew about her foot injury, questioning why she'd walked the entire garden in pain without saying a word. His voice grew intense as he asked if she hid it because she saw him as a murderous tyrant, just like everyone else. Flora frantically tried to deny it, but she couldn't form the words. A painful memory flashed through her mind, a harsh lesson from her childhood where she was taught that enduring suffering in silence was a virtue. Flora's mind floods with memories of a harsh upbringing. She was taught that showing pain, hunger, or sickness only inconvenienced others. Since then, enduring quietly became her only way of life. Back in the present, tears stream down her face as she finally explains herself. She just didn't want to be a bother to anyone. Her raw vulnerability catches Otto completely off guard. His anger vanishes, replaced by something else entirely as he gently reaches out to wipe a tear from her cheek. Through tears, Flora finally explains the truth. She didn't hide her pain because she distrusts him. She endured it because she was looking forward to seeing the flowers with him. She confesses she just wanted to stay by his side a little longer. Her words leave Otto completely stunned. He quietly asks if she really wants to stay with him. Finding a sliver of courage, Flora simply states that they are husband and wife. This unexpected directness shatters his composure, leaving the Emperor blushing and utterly speechless. After the intense confession, a heavy silence fills the room. Otto sits, looking conflicted, until Flora gently touches his sleeve. Gathering her nerve, she quietly asks if he still intends to kill her. His brutally honest response, that he's thinking about it, completely shatters her. She bursts into tears, wailing that she answered him honestly. Otto is thrown into a panic, telling her not to cry and demanding to know where her tough act went. Overwhelmed, Flora collapses against him, leaving the Emperor utterly flustered by her sudden breakdown. Completely lost, Otto internally panics, having no idea how to comfort a crying woman. Meanwhile, outside the room, the maid Vichy tearfully tells a guard that the Emperor had cornered her, preventing anyone from entering. Left alone, Otto simply waits until Flora's sobs subside. He awkwardly asks if she has stopped crying. Looking up with puffy, red eyes, Flora quietly apologizes for her outburst. The Emperor's only thought is that his aide, Cecil, will definitely give him an earful for making the Empress cry. Still completely out of his depth, Otto notices Flora's sprained ankle. In a clumsy attempt to help, he begins massaging it, claiming it's what Cecil does for his headaches. A surprised Flora tells him it hurts, sending the Emperor into a panic. The absurdity of the situation makes her laugh, much to his embarrassment. He quickly gives up, remembering Cecil's actual advice, to just apply medicine. Finally, Otto makes a solemn promise. He won't kill her, but in exchange, she must never tell Cecil about his disastrous medical efforts. Otto observes that Flora seems to place a lot of trust in his aide, Cecil. When Flora asks why he's so afraid of the doctor's lectures, the Emperor gets flustered, retorting that she never asked him about his skills. He then closes the distance between them, startling her. As she instinctively backs away, her injured ankle gives out. Otto lunges forward, catching her before she hits the ground. He pulls her securely against him, warning her to be careful. Held in his firm embrace, a blushing Flora is left completely speechless. Held securely in Otto's arms, Flora is completely stunned. The flustered Emperor tries to justify himself, asking what she would do if she fell and got hurt again. Pressed against his chest, Flora can hear his heart pounding. She realizes her unique, healing scent, which had faded, is now returning stronger than ever. Overwhelmed by the fragrance, Otto gives in to his instincts. He pulls her even tighter, burying his face in her hair and deeply breathing it in, finding so much relief. Under the full moon, Otto completely loses himself to the moment. He buries his face in Flora's hair, breathing in her calming scent as if it's the only thing that matters. The relief is immediate and overwhelming. But just as quickly, he snaps back to his senses, annoyed that he forgot himself again. A blush creeps up his neck as he pulls back slightly. Looking at Flora with flustered eyes, he states the obvious. They are different. Flora, still held in his arms, is left confused by his sudden change. Overwhelmed by his confusing words, Flora suddenly goes limp in Otto's arms, falling fast asleep. The Emperor is completely baffled, wondering who could possibly pass out at a moment like this. Frustrated, he thinks she must not see him as a man at all. After gently placing her on the bed, he reconsiders. Perhaps her total lack of caution isn't foolishness, but a sign that she actually trusts him. The realization brings a deep blush to his face. Elsewhere, an official hurries through the halls, having been summoned by the Emperor. The imperial household official, Michelle Lawrence, rushes to the Emperor's chambers, worried he's in trouble. He enters to find Otto with an intense focus, polishing his sword. The official timidly asks what his orders are at such a late hour. Without a word, Otto unsheathes the blade with a sharp, metallic ring, making Michelle flinch. The Emperor then takes a seat, his expression unreadable. He finally looks at the nervous official and states that he has something to ask him, leaving the man to sweat in anticipation. The nervous official asks what his emperor could possibly want. Otto leans forward with a serious expression and asks a completely unexpected question. Do all noble women get blisters from their shoes? Michelle is baffled. He was summoned in the middle of the night for fashion advice? Suspecting it might be a strange test, he answers professionally. He explains that noble women have their footwear custom-made from soft, comfortable leather, so they shouldn't cause any pain. Otto listens intently, clearly thinking about Flora's poorly fitted shoes and her injured ankle. The official confidently states that custom-made shoes don't cause blisters, assuming they're the right size. This information stops Otto in his tracks. He thinks about Flora's situation, wondering why a princess would wear shoes that didn't fit. The more he considers it, the more he realizes many things about her don't add up. Misinterpreting the Emperor's sudden silence, Michelle begins to sweat. Otto then gives a stunning command. Find out which shoe designs are popular with the noble ladies and have 100 pairs made for the Empress. The official is stunned by the Emperor's order for 100 pairs of shoes. He nervously explains that custom orders take a significant amount of time and that making so many quickly would be difficult. Otto's patience wears thin. He coldly tells the man to stop making excuses and simply follow his command. Intimidated, the official quickly agrees. He then asks when he can measure the Empress's foot, but Otto informs him she has an injury and it will have to wait, leaving the poor man panicking over the impossible task. With the official sweating bullets over the impossible task, Otto offered a bizarre solution. He held out his own hand for measurement, calmly stating it was about the same length as Flora's foot. He even used his fingers to show her ankle's narrow width, adding with a slight blush that her feet were exceptionally slender. The official stood frozen, completely stunned by the Emperor's incredibly specific knowledge. He quickly recovered and promised to have his craftsmen begin on the first few pairs immediately. As the official hurried away, he marveled at how the Emperor remembered the Empress's foot size so perfectly. He concluded they must have been spending some very sweet time together. This single observation sparked a rumor that spread like wildfire across the empire. News of the royal couple's growing affection soon reached Duke Glask's estate. Inside, a porcelain vase shattered on the floor. A maid warned Lady Evelyn to be careful, but it was too late. Overcome with frustration and jealousy, Evelyn's face hardened with rage. Lady Evelyn's anger grew as she stewed over the news about Flora. She recalled being in Otto's study, surrounded by lavish tributes. Eager for his attention, Evelyn had picked up a brilliant necklace made of rare Curia jewels, asking if it suited her. Otto, however, completely ignored her, never looking up from his paperwork. Her frustration boiled over upon realizing the Emperor had given that very same necklace to the woman from Pedania, a gift he hadn't even acknowledged when she first presented it. While Flora was beginning to find happiness, Lady Evelyn was consumed by rage. She decided she couldn't let this continue and had to get rid of the new Empress quickly. Full of purpose, Evelyn stormed into her father's office. Duke Glask, however, completely misread his daughter's serious mood. He greeted her warmly, offering to tell her a story if she couldn't sleep. Annoyed, Evelyn pushed him away, stating that she was no longer a child. She had come to him with a serious request. Eager to please his daughter, Duke Glask cheerfully promised to grant any wish she had. Evelyn's expression hardened as she made her shocking request to eliminate the Empress. The Duke's friendly demeanor vanished instantly, and he tried to send her away. But Evelyn refused to be dismissed, grabbing his arm and insisting that such a task should be easy for him. Her father grimly explained that Flora was a princess, someone they couldn't move against so easily. Desperate, Evelyn reminded him of his own promise, that only their family would ever sit beside the Emperor. Evelyn's tears finally break her father's resolve. She asks how he can just stand by and watch Flora act like she owns the throne. The Duke tries to dismiss her fears, insisting Flora is merely a tribute from a defeated nation, someone the Emperor could never truly love. But Evelyn knows their connection goes far deeper than simple gifts. She fears Otto is genuinely falling for the Empress. Overcome by his daughter's panic, the Duke embraces her, reluctantly promising he will find a way to handle the situation before the Emperor's feelings become irreversible. Evelyn notes that the Emperor's headaches seem to have vanished, and she resolves to ask the physician about it. Her father, Duke Glask, warns her to keep her dislike for Flora hidden for now. Evelyn is disgusted by the thought, protesting that even a simple chat with the Empress is draining. Unmoved, the Duke gently but firmly tells her to be a good girl and obey his command. A few days later, the physician Cecil reports that Flora's injury has completely healed, and he is promptly summoned to see her. The imperial physician, Cecil, enters Flora's chambers to check on her progress. Flora greets him with a radiant smile, looking fully recovered. After a formal exchange, Cecil kneels to inspect her previously injured foot. She asks if he plans to wrap it again, a hint of worry in her voice. He reassures her the wound is completely closed and no longer needs bandages. As he carefully unwraps the dressing for the last time, Flora beams with pure relief and gratitude, overjoyed to finally be healed. As physician Cecil removes the last of the bandages, he comments that Flora seems to be in a particularly good mood. Confused, Flora's smile suddenly vanishes as she spots a figure in the doorway. It's Otome. She nervously asks how long he has been standing there. The Emperor walks toward her, a troubled look on his face. He can't help but wonder why her happy expression disappeared the exact moment she laid eyes on him, a reaction that clearly left an impression on him. Otome points out that her happy smile vanished the moment she saw him. Trying to cover her tracks, Flora stammers that she was just surprised by his sudden visit. Unconvinced, Otome crosses the room and sits down right next to her, dismissing her excuse by saying a husband checking on his wife isn't startling. He then casually tells Cecil to continue the treatment. As the physician applies the ointment to her now-healed foot, Otome watches the man's every move with a sharp, possessive glare, filling the room with tension. As Cecil continues the treatment, Otome's glare is so intense it practically suffocates the room. The physician, feeling the weight of the Emperor's possessiveness, makes a bold move. He looks up at Otome and asks if he would like to take over. The suggestion flusters the Emperor, who stammers in surprise. Flora is just as shocked, telling him he couldn't possibly apply the medicine himself. Recovering his composure, Otome coldly asks who decided that, making it clear he'll do exactly as he pleases. With a look of sheer determination, Otome declares he'll handle the treatment himself. He orders a stunned Flora to stay still, and she's too shocked to do anything but agree. The Emperor then gently takes her foot into his lap, his touch surprisingly careful. As he prepares the ointment, Flora's heart pounds in her chest. She notices a strange contrast. The medicine itself is cold, but his hands are incredibly warm. This unexpected moment of gentle care from the man she once feared leaves her utterly flustered and speechless. Flora is completely caught off guard by his gentle touch. Every place his fingers press against her skin feels incredibly warm, sending a jolt through her. Her face flushes, unable to process this side of him. Otome is just as affected, noticing that her soothing scent has grown even stronger. Later, the imperial physician reports his findings, confirming that while treating the Empress, he noticed her distinctive fragrance was unusually potent. This only validates what Otome was already thinking, leaving him to ponder the power she holds over him. The imperial physician, Cecil, reports his findings to Otome. He observed that Flora's calming scent weakened when she got flustered, but grew much stronger after Otome began treating her kindly. Otome quickly puts it together, asking if the scent's strength is tied to her emotions. Cecil confirms the theory and suggests a simple test: do something that pleases the Empress. Otome scoffs, asking if he's supposed to flatter her. With a smirk, Cecil clarifies it's about deepening their relationship, but his teasing tone earns him an immediate dismissal from the room. As Cecil makes a hasty exit, he pleads with Otome to consider his suggestion, reminding him it's for his own well-being. But the Emperor furiously orders him out of the room. Once alone, Otome scoffs at the physician's ridiculous idea. Later, in the palace garden, Flora's maid, Vichy, celebrates that her leg has finally healed. Flora thanks her for the care, but Vichy explains that everyone is grateful to her. Thanks to the Empress, the Emperor has changed. Flora is stunned, wondering what the maid could possibly mean. Vichy eagerly confirms her statement, describing a look on Otome's face she had never seen before. She insists he seemed completely drawn to the Empress. Flustered by the compliment, Flora dismisses it as a ridiculous joke. But internally, panic grips her. If Otome ever discovered she was a body double, he would surely end her life, without a second thought. Winning his heart was a luxury she couldn't afford. Seeing her distress, Vishi's tone turned serious, asking if Flora has been listening to bad rumors about the Emperor. Vichy frantically waves her hands, insisting the rumors are all lies. But Flora can only remember what she was told back home, that Emperor Otome is a ruthless tyrant. Stories of his cruelty were legendary, with whispers claiming he even removed his own brother to seize the throne. Vichy firmly denies this, explaining that while Otome looks intimidating, he's never once been harsh with the servants. If he were the monster everyone says he is, people like her would have been in serious trouble long ago. Vichy admitted Otome can seem intimidating, recalling how frightening he was on their first night together. However, she explained that after getting to know him, she saw a surprisingly gentle side. Even the Emperor himself was trembling, caught between his own fear and anxiety. Later, Vichy urged Flora not to bother changing her clothes, announcing that His Majesty would be returning soon. Flora was stunned, realizing this meant he intended to spend the night. With a determined grin, Vichy rushed to the closet and pulled out a special nightgown, insisting they couldn't let him leave. Vichy proudly presents a delicate, lacy nightgown for the evening. A flustered Flora stares, questioning if something so revealing could even be considered clothing. Unfazed, Vichy insists it is and gently pushes her along, teasing that the Emperor will be there any moment. Once dressed in the surprisingly bold attire, Flora nervously clutches the fabric. She looks at her reflection with a mix of hope and anxiety, wondering if this gesture alone will be enough to make Otome stay with her for the night. Wearing the surprisingly delicate nightgown, Flora anxiously asked if it was really all right. Vichy beamed, insisting it looked even better than she had imagined. The clever maid then presented a matching cape, draping it over Flora's shoulders with a strategic instruction. She was to remove it only when the mood was perfect. Confused, Flora asked what she meant. Vichy, clearing her throat, explained that the perfect moment was when she and the Emperor were at their closest. A blushing Flora realized her maid was quite the expert in romance. Just when Flora thought things couldn't get more intense, Vichy revealed her secret weapon. The maid presented a book titled Love Manual, excitedly calling it a trending guide that would make the Emperor swoon. She insisted its advice had brought happiness to everyone she knew. A curious Flora opened the book, but her face immediately flushed with embarrassment at its contents. Vichy simply encouraged her to put the newfound knowledge to use. As Flora stood there flustered, the sound of steady footsteps approached the door. Otome had arrived. Otome stepped into the room, and Flora rose from her chair to greet him. Seeing her in the delicate nightgown, he seemed taken aback and asked if he'd kept her waiting. A blushing Flora assured him he hadn't, then shyly asked what brought him to her chambers. Otome explained that he had something he wanted to give her. On his command, a line of maids entered the room, each carrying a tray piled high with an assortment of cakes and sweets, leaving Flora completely surprised by the gesture. Otome reveals his second gift. He recalls seeing blisters on her feet the other day, so he had the palace officials craft new shoes for her in the latest fashion. Flora is stunned to learn that even more gifts are on the way, stammering that it's far too many. Otome simply tells her this is what a princess deserves. Ignoring her protests, he pulls her down to sit beside him, firmly telling her not to move before kneeling to place the delicate shoes on her feet himself. With the elegant shoes secured, Otome softly tells Flora to stand up. As she rises, she marvels at the perfect fit and beautiful design. The material is softer than anything she has ever felt. Turning back to the Emperor, she shyly wonders if he approves of how they look. A gentle smile graces Otome's face as he confirms they suit her perfectly. This simple kindness sends her spiraling into a painful memory of the past, where a cruel maid threw a pair of horrid shoes at her feet, ordering her to be grateful. As Flora is overwhelmed by Otome's unexpected kindness, tears begin to fall, splashing onto the beautiful new shoes. Otome is completely stunned, demanding to know why she's crying. Getting no answer, he panics, asking if she dislikes the shoes or if they don't fit properly. He grabs her shoulders, desperately needing an explanation for her sudden distress. Flora can only apologize, unable to control her emotions or understand why she can't stop crying. Seeing her turmoil, Otome softens, gently asking what he can do to make it better. Gathering her courage, Flora makes a hesitant request. She asks if he'll hold her. Otome freezes, his mind racing back to the love manual he'd been studying. This was exactly what the book advised him to do. As Flora begins to worry about his silence, he acts. He pulls her into a firm yet gentle embrace, holding her close. As he does, he notices her unique scent has changed with her emotions, just as his physician predicted. It's become stronger and more calming than ever before. Holding Flora, Otto told himself he was only investigating her scent, but he couldn't deny the love manual was working wonders. Flora looked up, blushing as she thanked, "Your Majesty." He gently stopped her, insisting that as his wife, she should use his name. Flora shyly whispered, "Otto." Hearing her say it for the first time seemed to be the final push he needed. He leaned in, and their lips met, marking a profound and unspoken shift in their complicated relationship. As their first kiss ended, Otto's mind raced, trying to remember what his love manual advised. He pulled back, his voice low as he told Flora she only had to say the word if she wanted him to stop. But Flora, blushing, gave a small shake of her head.
She didn't want this moment to end.
Understanding her silent reply, Otto guided her gently onto the bed. Whatever happened next, it was clear that their relationship had just crossed a significant line, shifting from a political arrangement to something far more intimate. Just as their relationship was about to change forever, a voice from outside the door shatters the mood. Lady Evelyn is here to see the Emperor. Otto, clearly annoyed, wonders what she could possibly want so late. He turns back to Flora and notices her trembling, asking if she's afraid. Suddenly, he pulls away, frustrated with himself for being overwhelmed by her. He apologizes and tells her to rest, leaving Flora confused. Hurt, she asks why he's sorry, arriving at the painful conclusion that the one he truly loves is Evelyn. Otto confronts his late-night visitor, Lady Evelyn, clearly annoyed by the interruption. He demands to know what she wants at this hour. Evelyn simply remarks that he seems flustered and playfully asks if he's too busy for tea, or maybe just eager to see the Empress. Otto's patience wears thin, and he tells her to get to the point. Dropping the facade, Evelyn's tone shifts. She gets serious, asking if he remembers the important event happening the month after next. Otto grits his teeth, confirming that he remembers the event. It's the anniversary of Alaric's death. Evelyn's expression softens as she recalls a dream of him and his kindness. She felt as if he were still right there with her. She then asks Otto directly if he recalls his promise to Alaric, that he would take care of her instead. Otto's temper flares. He shouts that he hasn't forgotten and commands her to stop talking about it. His sudden rage leaves Evelyn completely stunned and speechless. Evelyn tries to defend herself, claiming she didn't bring up Alaric on purpose. But her next words betray her, as she coldly asks Otto if he still feels guilty about his friend's passing, even after 3 years. The accusation strikes a nerve, causing the Emperor to tremble in silent anguish. She feigns an apology, but the damage is done. Otto turns away, bidding her a cold goodnight before walking off. Once the door slams shut, a smirk appears on Evelyn's face. She knows that name is the perfect weapon to torment him. Evelyn's cruel words send Otto into a spiral. His head throbs violently as haunting memories resurface. Voices echo in his mind, accusing him of taking his brother Alaric's life just to claim the throne. He tries to reason with the ghosts of his past, insisting it was a fair struggle for power. Overwhelmed, he screams for the torment to stop. Just then, a familiar, calming fragrance, Flora's scent, cuts through his anguish. A desperate need washes over him, and he immediately turns, determined to find her. Following the scent like a lifeline, Otto arrives at Flora's room. He's found it. Inside, Flora is sleeping soundly, completely unaware of his inner turmoil. Overcome by painful memories, Otto moves to her bedside. He gently gets into bed with her, seeking the only comfort that can silence the voices in his head. He pulls her close, burying his face near her neck and inhaling her calming fragrance. The suffocating grip of his past loosens, and for the first time all night, a wave of peace washes over him. The next morning, Flora stirs, feeling an unfamiliar weight. She opens her eyes, and her drowsiness vanishes instantly when she sees Otto sleeping right beside her. Stunned, she tries to process the impossible situation. He was with Evelyn last night, so she concludes this must be a dream. Reassured by this thought, she observes him, thinking he doesn't seem so frightening up close. As she feels the warmth of his breath, her heart starts to race, leaving her completely flustered by the unexpected closeness. Convinced she's still dreaming, Flora's shock turns into indignation. She gives Otto a firm shove, telling him that he can't just do as he pleases. The sudden movement wakes the Emperor, who sits up completely disoriented. He wonders aloud how he got there, but his confusion quickly twists into something else. Believing he's the one dreaming, he glares at Flora, calling her a horrible person for appearing before him. He grabs her face, intensely asking if she's planning on going somewhere again, mistaking her for someone else entirely. Still believing he's dreaming, Otto confronts Flora, asking if she truly doesn't want to be by his side. Flora, also convinced this is all a dream, feels an uncharacteristic wave of boldness. She knows she shouldn't be so forward, but she is drawn to him as if under a spell. Acting on impulse, she leans in and initiates a kiss. The move completely stuns Otto, snapping him to attention. He's baffled by her behavior. Just last night she was terrified of him, so why is she acting this way now? Otto freezes, completely thrown by the turn of events. Her strong floral scent fills the air as she leans over him. Believing this is all a dream, Flora feels a sudden rush of courage. She asks why he's looking away, questioning if he dislikes her. Before he can answer, she silences him, declaring that he isn't in charge at the moment. Pulling on his shirt, she moves closer, stating she won't give him room to refuse. Otto is utterly baffled by her forwardness, wondering what kind of game she's playing. Flora's first attempt is clumsy. She's so inexperienced, she forgets to breathe. Otto is baffled, wondering if she's actually trying to suffocate him. He gently pulls her away, calmly advising her to take a breath. He then adds that next time, she should remember to do so. His advice echoes in Flora's mind, and a wave of boldness washes over her. With new confidence, she leans in for a second kiss, silently wishing this dream would never stop. This time, he doesn't pull away. As Otto holds Flora, he's completely lost in her strong floral scent. Their intimate moment is shattered when the bedroom door swings open. A maid cheerfully enters to begin morning preparations, but her smile vanishes when she sees the two in a compromising position. Mortified, Flora turns away. Realizing her huge mistake, the maid stammers an apology and quickly shuts the door. Alone again, Flora freezes. A horrifying thought dawns on her. This wasn't a dream at all. Her bold actions were all too real. The morning light brings a horrifying clarity for Flora. It wasn't a dream. Panicked, she drops her head and apologizes profusely to Otto for her bold actions. He clears his throat, a bit flustered, but calmly reassures her that as a married couple, there's nothing wrong with what happened. Flora, however, is consumed by guilt, convinced she forced herself on a man who dislikes her. Otto is genuinely confused by her assumption. He runs a hand through his hair, privately thinking that her sleepy confidence was actually quite cute. In the palace gardens, noble women Iwa and Lunas gossip about the Empress. They've heard rumors that Flora is surprisingly bold in her marriage, which they chalk up to her foreign resilience. Spotting the Emperor's aide, Cecil, they immediately corner him, peppering him with questions about the royal couple. He tries to refuse, stating their majesties' lives are private. However, a nearby coachman quiets the ladies down, only to lean in and confirm all the romantic rumors, leaving them speechless with the juicy details. Back in the Pedania Royal Palace, Queen Mila receives a stunning report. Against all odds, Flora has survived and apparently won over Emperor Otto. A nobleman points out this is a perfect chance to use Flora for revenge against the Tyrant. The queen smirks, considering how to best make use of the girl. Flora, meanwhile, is completely unaware. Lost in thought, she has no appetite. Her maid, Vichy, misinterprets her condition. In a burst of excitement, she dashes off to find the imperial physician, leaving a very confused Flora behind. Flora frantically tries to clear up the misunderstanding with her maid, insisting nothing happened with the Emperor. A skeptical Vichy, determined to help, consults a romance manual. According to the book, what they need is a resonance of souls, not just proximity, and the best way to achieve this is by creating romantic memories. Her new plan is for Flora to invite the Emperor to do something he's great at. The next day, Vichy helps Flora into a riding habit, ready to put her master plan into motion. Following her maid's advice, Flora approaches Emperor Otto at the stables, dressed in a riding habit for the first time. After a nervous apology for her tardiness, she delivers her rehearsed compliment. It's an honor to witness his renowned horsemanship. Otto leans in, noting that as a princess, she must have seen countless riding demonstrations. Before she can answer, he dismisses the idea, stating that simply watching is boring. He grabs the reins of a white horse, insisting she should experience the thrill of riding for herself. Otto insists he will support her, urging her to try riding. Flora is forced to confess a shocking secret. She doesn't know how. The Emperor is visibly stunned that a princess can't ride a horse. Gathering her courage, Flora clarifies that she wanted to ride with him. Otto misinterprets this romantic gesture as a request for a lesson. To Flora's horror, he declares he will teach her. Seeing her panic, he asks if she dislikes the idea. She quickly denies it, but the lesson is already set to begin. Emperor Otto declares her first lesson has begun. He instructs Flora to watch closely, then demonstrates how to properly mount a horse. With expert precision, he swings himself onto the saddle. Flora is taken aback. She hadn't expected him to be such a patient and thorough teacher. His movements fluid and confident in the bright sunlight, he guides the horse in a circle around her. As he pulls the reins, bringing the horse to a perfect stop, Flora watches him with a soft, appreciative smile, seeing a new side to the fearsome ruler. Otto leaned down from his horse, offering a gloved hand to Flora. He reassured her it was all right. He was with her.
Hesitantly, she took his hand.
In one smooth motion, he pulled her up onto the saddle, seating her securely in front of him. They rode through the open field, and Flora kept her eyes shut tight, trusting him completely. When the horse finally stopped, Otto's voice prompted her to open them. She looked up to see a breathtaking sunset blanketing an endless field of golden flowers. Flora thought the sunset over the field was breathtaking. She looked up at the Emperor, asking if he thought so too. Otto agreed that it was truly beautiful, but a fleeting memory of a red-haired woman crossed his mind. He suddenly pulled Flora closer, claiming her beauty had captivated him. Flustered, she brushed off his apology. Unfazed, Otto leaned in, his face right next to her neck. Flora froze, her mind reeling from his closeness, barely able to think his name as he held her against him on the horse. Later, as her maid brushes her hair, Flora is still blushing from the day's events. The maid, Vichy, excitedly asks about the horse ride. Flora explains that Otto took her to a stunning flower field. Prodding for details, Vichy learns what happened after Otto leaned in so close. Instead of what she feared, he simply gave her a gentle kiss on the forehead. He told her it was a reward for her courage. Flora is stunned by his tender gesture, while Vichy squeals with delight, realizing the Emperor is far more romantic than anyone imagined. Vichy tried to stifle a giggle, revealing a secret. Otto planted that flower field himself and had never shown it to anyone before. Surprised, Flora asked if that included Lady Evelyn. The maid confirmed Evelyn had practically begged to see the field, but the Emperor always refused. Vichy insisted since he took Flora, it must mean she has become someone special to him. The idea left Flora stunned, but her hopeful expression faded as she remembered something. For a split second out on that field, something felt wrong. Despite the romantic progress, Flora remembered the deep sadness she saw in Otto's eyes, wondering why he'd looked so pained. Her maid, Vichy, was too excited to notice Flora's concern, gushing that the Emperor's behavior was wonderful and Flora would surely capture his heart. Feeling hopeful, Flora shared more news. Otto had promised to teach her swordsmanship. She was thrilled at the idea of spending more time with him. But Vichy's excitement instantly vanished, replaced by sheer panic. She knew a dark truth about his training and couldn't bear to tell Flora. Vichy's ominous warning left Flora completely confused. The maid told her that if the training became too much, it was okay to cry, but pleaded with her not to overdo it. The scene then shifts to the training grounds. Flora stands ready with a wooden sword, but Otto's method is brutal. He strikes with precision, easily besting her. Looking down at the defeated Flora, he coldly informs her that she has died again. In that moment of exhaustion and shock, Flora finally understood her maid's terror. This was no gentle lesson. As Flora lay defeated, Otto surprisingly complimented her, stating she had passed. She could hardly believe it. He explained that the first step in learning the sword is to face the fear of being struck, one she had just accomplished. However, Flora knew the truth. She hadn't been brave, just frozen with terror. The fear of his disappointment sent her spiraling into a dark memory from her past. A cruel voice called her a useless girl as something shattered, reminding her of a time when failure was met with harsh punishment. The fear of disappointing Otto plunges Flora into a dark memory. She's a young girl again, kneeling amid shattered glass as her cruel tutor looms over her. The woman calls her an idiot, warning that her incompetence will expose her as a substitute princess. She grabs Flora, accusing her of faking failures to cause embarrassment in front of the queen. When Flora timidly asks for another demonstration, her tutor snaps. She orders Flora to practice without rest, a harsh punishment that made her realize she was never meant to succeed. Her tutor had already decided she was a hopeless person. No matter how hard she tried, the woman would always find something to nitpick. But Otto was different. He was strict, but he taught her responsibly and carefully, telling her to continue and try again. Unlike her tutor, Otto never used words that attacked her character. This realization filled Flora with a new resolve. She couldn't let him down. Looking at him with determination, she asked for more training, declaring she wanted to learn how to dodge his sword. Otto was taken aback by Flora's determination, admitting he expected her to quit. Impressed by her spirit, he complimented her grit and promised to continue the training. Later, as her maid Vichy treated her bruised arms, she wondered why Flora was pushing herself so hard. Vichy had heard that Otto declared Flora dead 26 times during their session. Flora admitted it was true, but beamed with joy. The Emperor had also praised her persistence, and that one moment of recognition from him meant the world to Flora. Later, while Otto relaxed in the grand bathhouse, his aide Cecil approached him. The aide expressed concern, noting that Flora's maid had already come for wound medicine, and gently suggested that the Emperor was being too strict with the delicate Empress. Otto calmly dismissed Cecil's worries, stating that the aide underestimated Flora. He had come to realize she possessed real grit, a strong core, and a deep hatred for losing. He then stunned the aide by comparing her to someone from the House of Cecilia, sparking a new resolution in his mind. Hoping to recover from her grueling training, Flora arrives at the grand bathhouse. She has another session with Otto tomorrow and is determined to be ready. As she slips into the warm, steamy water, her moment of peace is shattered. A strong hand suddenly grabs her wrist, pulling her off balance. In an instant, she finds herself held firmly against Otto's chest. Stunned, Flora looks up into the Emperor's intense, unreadable eyes as he breaks the silence of the bathhouse. Held tight against Otto, a flustered Flora quickly apologizes for intruding on his bath. She tries to pull away, but the Emperor stops her, grabbing her wrist and pulling her back against him with undeniable strength. With a look of amusement, he tells her that since she's already here, she might as well keep him company. Stunned into silence, Flora realizes this is the first time she's been this close to him, her eyes catching the faint battle scars that mark his chest. Flora is completely captivated by Otto's physique, her mind reeling at the sight. The Emperor notices her stare and smirks, remarking that she seems quite interested in his body. Mortified, Flora snaps back to reality, stammering an apology and insisting she didn't mean to stare. But Otto isn't upset. Instead, he tells her not to hold back, offering it as a reward for her diligent training. He then gently guides her hand to his chest, leaving Flora utterly stunned and questioning if this surreal moment is even happening. With her hand still on his chest, a thought crosses Flora's mind. Maybe, just maybe, he's willing to accept her. But then Otto's focus shifts to a small bruise on her shoulder, asking if it's from her training earlier. Flora quickly dismisses his concern, assuring him it's nothing serious. Ignoring her words, Otto gently touches the sore spot before leaning in. He softly places his lips against her skin, leaving Flora completely breathless. All she can do is whisper his name in stunned silence as the intimate gesture overwhelms her. Flora felt completely overwhelmed. Despite Otto's gentle touch, her heart pounded, and she grew flustered by the intense closeness. Feeling like she couldn't take it anymore, she weakly called his name and asked him to wait. Otto pulled back, a slight flush on his face, and asked what was wrong. Flora admitted that her body felt strange, and her head was spinning. Seeing her completely dazed and unsteady, Otto suddenly let out a laugh. Confused, Flora could only ask him why he found the situation so funny. Otto tells Flora he only wanted to show appreciation for her hard work. But as he gazes at her, his tone shifts, and he declares he's changed his mind. Before Flora can question him, he swiftly pulls her in, closing the distance between them. Their lips meet in a sudden, undeniable kiss, leaving her breathless. As the surprise fades, a powerful realization washes over Flora. In this intimate moment, she finally understands the true nature of the overwhelming feelings she's been experiencing whenever he is near. The sudden kiss left Flora breathless. Though her body felt overwhelmed, her heart was crystal clear. She finally understood her true feelings and wanted to be even closer to Otto, craving his touch. As the embrace deepened, her desire for him to continue grew stronger. But when Otto saw her completely dazed expression, he pulled back slightly. A look of concern crossed his face as he wondered if he had moved too fast and gone too far, leaving them both in stunned silence in the water. Later that night, Flora is fast asleep, clearly worn out from the day's intensity. Otto, still awake, notices a book resting on her. He picks it up, a small smile forming as he realizes she was studying ways to help him with his condition. Touched by her earnest effort, he gently strokes her cheek, calling her a cute one. He leans down and places a soft kiss on her forehead, quietly wishing her goodnight. A new tenderness fills his gaze as he watches over her, a peaceful end to their eventful evening. A week later, Flora sits down with Cecil, the imperial physician. He hands her a new, significant task, preparing for the founding anniversary party. Flora is taken aback, questioning if she is truly suited for such an important role. Cecil reassures her, confidently stating that no one is better for the job than the Empress of Nordvane and promising his full support. Touched by his trust, Flora's self-doubt vanishes. She realizes her duty as Otto's wife and resolves to do her absolute best, a determined smile lighting up her face. Cecil starts their meeting with a little teasing, saying Otto called Flora a sore loser, which leaves her completely flustered. He then gets down to business, informing her a grand ball will be held for the anniversary. He adds that everyone is excited to see the Emperor and Empress dance. As he leaves, he wonders if he is trusting Flora too much. However, he quickly dismisses the thought, remembering how much Otto's condition has improved since she arrived, solidifying his trust in her. As Cecil walks away, his confidence gives way to a flicker of doubt. He questions if Flora is truly worthy of their trust. After all, if she had nothing to hide, why was her mother, the Queen of Pedania, so secretive just to deliver a letter? He grows suspicious, speculating that perhaps Flora will show her true colors at the upcoming anniversary party. With a determined look, Cecil resolves to consult the Emperor about the one he managed to secretly obtain. He needed to uncover the truth behind it. In his study, Otto looks up from his work, stunned by Flora's request. She nervously asks if he would practice dancing with her for the upcoming ball, admitting she's a terrible dancer. Otto finds this hard to believe, immediately suspecting another one of her strange ploys to get his attention. He crosses his arms, considering her odd proposal. Despite his suspicion, he relents. He agrees to practice with her every day at 4 in the afternoon in her garden. Flora's face lights up, barely believing he actually said yes. In the sunlit palace garden, their first dance lesson begins. As Otto takes her in his arms, he calmly instructs her not to panic and to follow his steps. Despite his guidance, Flora is a bundle of nerves. A moment later, she clumsily steps right on his foot. Mortified, she apologizes profusely, insisting it was an accident. Instead of getting angry, Otto is surprisingly patient. He simply tells her to pay it no mind and that they will try again, though Flora's 2 left feet continue to be a challenge. After a few more clumsy missteps, Flora gives up completely. Seeing her frustration, Otto realizes she genuinely can't dance. Feeling defeated, Flora tells him he should just ask Lady Evelyn to dance at the ball instead. This finally gets a reaction. Otto questions why she constantly brings Evelyn up, his patience wearing thin. He then softens, telling Flora not to put herself down. He admits that even he struggled when he first started, recalling a painful memory of being harshly compared to his far more talented brother as a child. Otto looked back on his past, remembering his kind older brother who patiently promised to help him learn to dance. Inspired by this memory, Otto's tone softened. He told Flora there was no need to apologize so much. Since he promised to teach her, he wasn't going to give up. He then realized her fear was the real problem. Pulling her in, he explained that her guilt was holding her back. To fix this, he told her to try stepping on his feet from the very start. Flora was stunned by his unconventional suggestion. Following Otto's strange advice, Flora placed her feet directly on top of his. He told her not to overthink it, but to learn his movements by feeling them. As he guided her, something finally clicked. They began to move together in a way she never thought possible, gliding across the terrace. 2 hours later, they finished a simple song without a single mistake. Overjoyed, Flora celebrated her small victory. Otto watched her, a warm, satisfied smile spreading across his face as he saw her genuine happiness. Overwhelmed with joy, Flora spontaneously throws her arms around Otto, thanking him profusely. Caught completely off guard, he awkwardly boasts that his teaching is simply superior. He quickly softens, however, telling her the success is the result of her own hard work. Still close, Flora shyly asks if there will be a reward this time. Otto's entire expression shifts. Taking her hand, he declares that she can decide the reward. When she questions if he truly means her, he confirms, a smirk appearing as he says there's something he wants her to do. Flora's face flushed as she considered his strange proposal. Making her choice, she confirmed he wouldn't get angry no matter what she did. Otto scoffed, asking if he seemed so short-tempered. With that, Flora took a confident stance and, to the Emperor's utter shock, commanded him to sit. Otto stood frozen, completely baffled. Flora insisted, reminding him of his promise. She explained that his height was simply too inconvenient for what she had planned. Before he could process her words, she warned him that it might hurt a little. Otto sits down reluctantly, bracing himself as he wonders if Flora is about to strike him. Instead, she surprises him by starting a skillful shoulder massage. Leaning close, she thanks him for his patience with her practice sessions, wishing she could offer a better reward. Stunned by the pleasant gesture, Otto quietly tells her that if anything, he should be the one thanking her. As a confused Flora pauses, he turns to face her. His expression is intense as he takes her sleeve, murmuring about the power of her scent. Elsewhere, in the Emperor's study, his physician Cecil presents a sealed letter. He explains it might hold instructions for Flora from her home kingdom of Pedania. Otto's expression turns grim as he picks it up, cryptically asking Cecil if he knows the story of Pandora's box and declaring the letter is the same. He worries that if he opens it, everything that has happened between him and the Empress will become meaningless. But Cecil reminds him the marriage was always a political tactic to control her country. Otto smirks, deciding against prying into a woman who knows nothing. He tells Cecil it's far more entertaining to watch Flora make her own choices and observe her genuine reactions. Besides, he adds coldly, he still needs her unique scent. This revelation makes Cecil question everything. He now wonders if the Emperor's kindness was never about love, but a cold calculation, picturing Flora as a bird in a gilded cage. Understanding the order, Cecil bows and agrees to deliver the sealed letter directly to the Empress. In a dark dungeon, a captured maid begs Cecil for forgiveness. She insists she was just paid to hand a letter to the Empress, swearing she committed no treason. But Cecil isn't there to punish her. He holds the letter and gives an unexpected order. She is to deliver it to Flora exactly as planned. He sternly warns her not to arouse any suspicion. The stunned maid takes the envelope, now a pawn in the Emperor's cold and calculating game, wondering what just happened. While Flora diligently practices dancing, her maid Vichy suggests she take a well-deserved break. Flora brightens, asking for a sweet treat. As Vichy leaves, Flora thinks about how busy Otto has been, resolving to surprise him with her new skills. Her peaceful moment is cut short when an unfamiliar maid approaches, bowing nervously. The maid presents a letter with a strange seal. Flora is instantly wary, questioning the timing and the stranger's presence. The innocent atmosphere vanishes as she stares at the ominous envelope, a pawn in a game she doesn't understand. Flora's eyes widened in shock as she read the letter. It was from Queen Mila. The message started with fake sweetness, praising Flora for meeting expectations before telling her to endure the hardship a little longer for the Queen's sake. Then came the true command. Mila claimed Otto was trying to steal Pedania's territory, Villepin, and ordered Flora to stop him. A cold realization washed over Flora. She knew Villepin was originally Nordvane's land, but that wasn't the point. She was completely powerless to influence, let alone stop, anything the Emperor decided to do. Flora clutched the letter, deeply troubled. Queen Mila's words painted Otto as cruel, but Flora knew the truth. She recalled his moments of kindness, a complete contrast to the Queen's harsh description. Their marriage was a pact for peace, and Mila's demands threatened to shatter it. Refusing to be a pawn, Flora decided to handle the manipulative queen herself. She sat at her desk and carefully wrote a response. She resolved to keep this entire affair a secret from Otto, protecting him from the political games. A maid later came to collect the letter. After Flora finished writing, the maid collected the letter, but her curiosity took over, and she stole a glance at its contents. Her eyes widened in shock. She couldn't believe Flora had dared to stand up to the manipulative Queen Mila. The next day, the maid, Vichy, was brushing Flora's hair and began teasing her. She pointed out that Flora hadn't seen the busy emperor in days, asking if she missed him. When a flustered Flora denied it, Vichy giggled mischievously and presented a brand new letter, playfully asking what it was. Flora's face flushed as Vichy playfully held up the letter. The maid gushed, admitting she'd read it and thought it was a romance novel. Flora frantically tried to correct her, explaining it was a reply to Queen Mila. She confessed that while writing, she started thinking about her time with Otto, and her words kept flowing until the letter got very long. Finding this incredibly endearing, Vichy suggested Flora should just be honest and convey her feelings to the emperor. The bold idea struck Flora, leaving her speechless as she seriously considered it. Vichy's words sent Flora spiraling into her past. She remembered being a lonely child, always watching others from a distance. The one time she gathered her courage to ask to play, the other kids just stared, shutting her out completely. This rejection followed her everywhere. Even at mealtime, simply stating she didn't like a certain food earned her a harsh scolding from her caretaker. She was taught early on that her feelings didn't matter, and it was better to just stay quiet and endure. The weight of her past returned, and Flora decided against confessing. She reasoned that Otto was far too busy to listen to her boring stories anyway. But Vichy refused to accept this, grabbing Flora's hand and passionately insisting that her feelings were a precious memory, not a burden. She urged Flora to use this chance to get the emperor to open his heart. For the first time, Flora felt a spark of hope. Maybe Otto really would listen. But as she agreed, Vichy suggested she read the letter aloud, leaving Flora utterly stunned. Flora's face burned with embarrassment. She insisted the idea was mortifying, worried she'd get too nervous to speak properly. Without missing a beat, Vichy suggested finding a practice partner. Just then, the imperial physician, Cecil, entered the room. He was immediately suspicious, wondering what information Flora was trying to get from him. Before he could voice his concerns, Vichy boldly asked him to help Flora practice her speech for the emperor. Cecil just stood there, completely stunned by the bizarre request. Caught off guard, Cecil admitted the request was unexpected and asked why he was chosen. Flora explained with a sincere smile that it's because he understands Emperor Otto so well, and more importantly, he's someone she trusts completely. The earnest praise flustered the physician, causing him to blush and stammer that she was too kind. Seeing his hesitation, Flora said she wouldn't force him, but he quickly interrupted. Taking her hand, Cecil agreed to help, instructing her to think of him as the emperor from that moment forward. Otto pulls Flora into a close embrace, whispering that if it weren't for work, he'd want to stay with her forever. Flustered, Flora urges him to return to his duties. Changing the subject, she asks if he might bring her a sweet treat later. Otto smirks and agrees. Gathering her courage, Flora tells him she'll be waiting. He leans in closer, murmuring that anything she brings will surely taste exceptionally good. Flora is left stunned and blushing, completely caught off guard by his sudden, smooth charm. Still caught up in the memory of Otto's embrace, Flora snaps back to the present. She quickly prepares some simple cookies, hoping they will be enough. On her way to his office, a voice calls her name. It's another noblewoman, Lady Ibelin. She greets Flora with a polite but knowing smile, commenting on what a coincidence it is to meet her there. Flora then notices the tray in Ibelin's hands, holding a set of perfectly crafted cakes. The other lady asks if Flora is also going to see Otto. Lady Ibelin glances from her own elaborate cakes to Flora's simple basket of cookies. Flora confirms she was indeed bringing them to His Majesty. With a saccharine smile, Ibelin drops a bombshell. Otto was traumatized as a child after choking on a cookie. Flora is stunned. She had no idea. The lady then smoothly suggests Otto can just eat her cake instead, reminding Flora that as a childhood friend, she understands him better. Feeling dejected, Flora walks away, thinking about the deep history the Emperor and Lady Ibelin must share. Flora's confidence crumbles. She imagines Lady Eibelin and Otto through the years, sharing a history that started when they were children. In comparison, Flora feels like she has barely scratched the surface of knowing him. Doubt creeps in as she questions if she could ever measure up to such a deep bond or truly catch up. Just then, the Imperial Guard captain appears, surprised to see both ladies. With a polite bow, he offers to announce their visit to His Majesty. Lady Eibelin coolly informs the guard that she doesn't need an announcement to see Otto. Defeated, Flora then tells him to let Eibelin enter. However, the guard apologizes, explaining that His Majesty gave strict orders. No one but the Empress is allowed in today. Eibelin is floored, questioning if even she is barred from entry. The guard confirms the order. Playing it off, Eibelin claims Otto must be busy and turns to leave. But before she can, Flora calls out for her to wait. Lady Eibelin scoffs, twisting Flora's kindness into an accusation. She asks if Flora is bragging about being the only one allowed to see the Emperor. Flustered, Flora denies it, explaining she just felt it was a shame for the cookies she baked to go to waste. Eibelin coldly rejects the offer, saying she can handle it herself. Internally, she seethes with rage, furious that a mere hostage would dare to pity her. She walks off, leaving Flora behind. Later, Flora stands before Otto, who asks if she arrived with Eibelin. Otto notices Flora's glum expression and correctly guesses Lady Eibelin said something cruel. Flustered, Flora denies it, but Otto presses on, asking why she looks so dejected. He steps closer and gently touches her cheek, confessing that her sadness brings him down. 2. He asks her to show him her cute smile more often, making Flora's heart race. Internally, Otto smirks. He's figured out that whispering sweet words is the perfect way to make her therapeutic scent grow stronger. Changing the subject, Otto announces he's starving and asks if she brought anything sweet. Flora presents the cookies but quickly warns him not to eat them, explaining that Lady Eibelin mentioned he choked on one as a child. Dismissing it as ancient history, Otto confidently takes a bite, only to immediately start choking. Despite this, he stubbornly forces down every last cookie she baked. Later, an exhausted Otto rests his head on Flora's lap. She smiles warmly, affectionately calling him a stubborn child, completely touched by his ridiculous effort. Looking completely drained, Otto brushes off Flora's concern about the cookies. He tries to act tough, claiming they're nothing compared to what he eats on military campaigns. Before she can argue, he announces he's sleepy and promptly lays his head on her lap. A flustered Flora asks if he can really rest like that, only to realize he's already fast asleep. A soft smile appears on her face as she marvels at how close they've become. Gently touching his hair, her own heart begins to race, leaving her utterly bewildered. As Otto sleeps on her lap, Flora notices a book wedged in the sofa cushions. She pulls it out, her curiosity piqued. She opens the diary. Reading its contents, her expression shifts to one of complete shock. The entries detail something horrifying. Looking down at the man she was just starting to feel close to, Flora is stunned by a devastating revelation. According to his journal, Otto is meticulously planning to declare war on her home country, Pedania. The tender moment shatters, replaced by a chilling vision of his battlefield ruthlessness. With a growing sense of horror, Flora realized the target of this planned war was her own homeland, Pedania. The peaceful man on her lap was, in fact, a conqueror plotting her country's ruin. Flora's mind raced. Her first instinct was to tell Queen Mira about the devastating invasion plan. Just then, Otto stirred on her lap, making her freeze in terror. Thankfully, he didn't wake up. As she watched him sleep, a wave of confusion washed over her. If the plans in that book were real, what did he truly think of her? Was everything a lie? A new resolve hardened her gaze. She wouldn't just run for help, deciding instead there had to be a way to avoid this war, and she would find it. At Duke Grask's estate, Lady Evelyn fumed, declaring that Flora had made a fool of her. The Duke, weary of her outbursts, reminded Evelyn to think before acting on her emotions. She shot back, asking how she could possibly be calm when Otto no longer paid her any attention. Seeing her frustration, the Duke offered a new plan. He handed her an intercepted letter, one Flora secretly sent to Pedania. As he asked her to imagine what the Emperor would do if it contained Nordvane's secrets, a sinister smile crossed Evelyn's face. Evelyn's smile was pure evil. She gloated that this letter would paint Flora as a traitor, ensuring she'd face the harshest punishment. The Duke agreed, pleased that they wouldn't have to dirty their own hands. But Evelyn's triumphant expression vanished as she read the contents. It wasn't about state secrets at all, but rather how much Otto was doing for Flora. Absolutely furious that the Emperor would go to such lengths for another woman, Evelyn crumpled the paper in her hands and ripped it to shreds in a fit of jealous rage. The Duke watched in alarm as Evelyn's fury boiled over. She declared that tearing the letter wasn't enough. Before he could react, she grabbed a nearby sword, screaming that she would kill Flora. The Duke quickly grabbed her arm, telling her to calm down. A Duke's daughter couldn't just attack the Empress. But Evelyn was hysterical. She cried that she'd known Otto since she was 10, yet he'd never taught her to ride or dance. He certainly never took her to that special flower field, no matter how many times she begged. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face as she struggled against the Duke. She cried out that Otto had promised to cherish her, so why was he being so cold now, giving all his affection to another woman? Completely overwhelmed, she collapsed to the floor as the sword clattered beside her. The Duke looked down at his daughter, understanding her pain. It wasn't just about love. Evelyn's immense pride was shattered. She simply could not accept that someone else had taken the Empress's seat she always believed was hers. The Duke knelt before his weeping daughter, telling her not to cry anymore. He reminded Evelyn of a promise he once made, to give her nothing but the very best. As he comforted her, a new realization dawned on him. Was it Otto she loved, or the title of Empress? It didn't matter. He assured her that if she truly wanted the throne, he would make it happen. A dark resolve settled in his gaze. All they needed to do was get rid of the current Empress, Flora. With her hope renewed, Evelyn tearfully thanked her father, ready to pay any price to get what she wanted. Elsewhere, Emperor Otto walked with his aide, Cecil. He learned the nobles had requested an audience to discuss the Empress. A smug smile crossed Otto's face. The rumors he'd spread were working perfectly. He asked Cecil to guess what lies the nobles would use against Flora. Cecil nervously suggested they might accuse her of treason. Otto simply burst out laughing, completely amused by their predictable scheming. Otto lightly teased his aide, saying his prediction was as unoriginal as the nobles themselves. Cecil simply admitted it was the best he could come up with. Later, the grand throne room doors swung open. Otto walked past the bowing crowd and took his seat, telling everyone to rise. His gaze landed directly on Duke Glask, acknowledging him as the meeting's organizer. With a calm expression, Otto asked what the Duke wanted to report. The Duke stepped forward, confirming that his concern was about the Empress, just as Otto expected. Duke Glask dramatically presented a sealed letter to the Emperor. He declared it was proof that Empress Flora was leaking classified information to her home kingdom. The nobles erupted in shocked whispers, questioning if their new Empress was a spy. Unfazed on his throne, Otto knew this was what he'd expected. He calmly asked the Duke what made him so sure the letter was from Flora. The Duke urged Otto to read it himself, insisting her kind demeanor was a facade. Otto simply gestured, ordering his guard, Elon, to retrieve the evidence. The throne room erupted in whispers. The nobles felt betrayed, believing Pedania's peace offering was a lie. Otto held the letter, coolly noting that for the Duke to be so bold, he must have already read it. The Duke confirmed he had, claiming he rushed over once he understood the contents. Looking at the letter, Otto acknowledged that condemning the Empress based on a single piece of paper was hasty. With a faint smirk, he announced the solution. They would summon Empress Flora herself and question her directly. The heavy doors to the throne room creaked open, and Flora walked into a wall of silence. Every noble in the room stared directly at her, their whispers ceasing the moment she appeared. Confused and nervous, she approached the throne and formally greeted the Emperor, asking why she had been summoned. Otto leaned forward, holding the infamous letter. He cut straight to the point, informing her that Duke Glask was accusing her of colluding with her former kingdom. The word struck Flora with force. She stared in disbelief, horrified by the accusation. Flora's eyes widened in recognition. She couldn't understand how Otto had that specific letter. His expression was cold as he held it up, asking if she was the one who wrote it. She had no choice but to quietly admit that she had. At that, Duke Glask burst out triumphantly, declaring that her confession proved his suspicions were correct. He accused her of hiding ulterior motives behind an innocent face. Panicked, Flora insisted she wasn't colluding with anyone, but when he pressed her to explain, she couldn't form the words. Desperate, Flora asked if Otto had read the letter, certain its contents would prove her innocence. But Otto's expression remained cold. He pointed out that regardless of its message, she still sent a letter to her former kingdom without his knowledge. Unable to deny the damning fact, Flora fell silent. With that, Otto declared the discussion over. He announced that as of today, the Empress was forbidden from leaving the palace. As he walked away, letting the letter fall, the nobles whispered in terror. His anger was real, and they were too scared to even look at him. As Otto walked away, Flora's mind reeled. He had condemned her without even reading the letter. A sudden fire ignited within her, and she shot to her feet, calling out his first name. The nobles gasped at her boldness, with Lady Evelyn questioning if she had a death wish, considering the Emperor was already furious, and this was a huge breach of etiquette. Ignoring them, Flora picked up the letter he had dropped. She declared to the entire assembly that she would prove her innocence by reading its contents aloud, right then and there. Otto paused, turning back to call her a fool. Across the room, Duke Glask watched with a triumphant smirk, thinking his plan had worked perfectly. Despite her embarrassment, Flora was determined to clear this misunderstanding for Otto's sake. She couldn't bear the thought of him feeling betrayed. With trembling hands, she broke the seal and began to read. Her confidence instantly shattered. The words on the page were not her own. While the handwriting was a perfect imitation, the message was completely different. As she froze in shock, Duke Glask stepped forward, mockingly asking why she wasn't reading it aloud. Duke Glask snatched the letter, declaring that since Flora was too afraid to read her crimes, everyone would see for themselves. As the damning words were passed around, the crowd's shock turned to judgment. Flora watched in horror, realizing any attempt to explain would be useless. Otto would never believe her now. The Emperor stepped close, his voice dangerously low as he stated she had no excuses left. Completely trapped, Flora couldn't understand how this nightmare had unfolded. She felt the weight of every noble's glare as her reputation crumbled. Flora admitted the handwriting was hers, but the contents were a complete fabrication. Otto's eyes narrowed, questioning her claim of forgery. As the accusation hung in the air, Duke Glask's allies shouted she was lying. Another noble, however, pointed out that if Glask had seen the letter, it could have easily been switched. The Duke immediately denied everything. He twisted the situation, painting Flora as a manipulative woman who used tears to bewitch the Emperor, warning him not to fall into her trap. Otto confronted Flora, asking for proof that the letter was a forgery. He then turned his sharp gaze on Duke Glask, pointing out that Glask also had no evidence proving he didn't switch the letter. Cornered by his direct question, Glask stammered that he had no such proof. With both sides at a stalemate, Count Karl noted that neither claim could be substantiated. Therefore, Otto declared the matter required a formal investigation. Until a conclusion was reached, Flora was forbidden from leaving the palace, her fate uncertain. With the formal investigation declared, Otto announced the potential consequences. If the investigation proved the Empress was colluding, she would face punishment under Nordvane law. His gaze fell upon Duke Glask, asking if he objected. The flustered Duke could only stammer that he had no objections. As the other nobles departed, the heavy doors clicked shut, leaving Flora alone with the Emperor. She tensed, her mind racing with uncertainty. Before she could process the situation, Otto suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist, startling her. With his hand locked on her wrist, Otto pulled Flora into a firm embrace. Stunned, she could only whisper his name in confusion. But this wasn't an act of comfort. Otto looked down at her with a stern expression, asking what she was thinking. He scolded her for trying to read such an embarrassing letter in front of everyone, calling her shameless. Flora was floored. She demanded to know how he knew its contents. With a slight smirk, Otto revealed that he and his aide, Cecil, had already confirmed what the letter said long ago. With Flora held firmly in his arms, Otto revealed why he was so annoyed. He recalled his aide, Cecil, examining the letter and noting it looked like a love confession. He then asked Flora why she would secretly send a love letter meant for him to the Queen of Pedania. Flustered, Flora tried to stop him, insisting it wasn't a love letter. She explained that she only wanted to tell her mother that he had been kind. Her mother's belief that he was a cruel tyrant was the reason their countries were always at odds. Otto scoffed, questioning if she honestly thought one letter could change a queen's mind. Flustered, Flora demanded to know how Otto had gotten her letter. He smirked, revealing it was thanks to a certain gossip-loving maid. Flora immediately realized he meant Vichy. Otto explained that her maid had shown the letter's draft to the guard captain, Elon, who then reported its contents directly to him. This meant Otto knew all along that the letter Duke Glask presented was a forgery. Flora asked a sharp question. Did he not suspect her at all? She could have deliberately shown a fake draft to her maid. Otto coolly dismisses Flora's suggestion, stating he knew she wouldn't do such a thing. He then reveals another, more definitive reason. He was certain the letter was a forgery. The person who forged it, he explains, is actually one of his own subordinates. The revelation leaves Flora speechless. Leaning in, Otto clarifies the situation for her. Duke Glask and the other nobles, he says while toying with her hair, are all just dancing in the palm of his hand. This entire plot was a setup he controlled from the start. Flora processed his words, sighing as she realized this was just the kind of intricate plan Otto would create. A wave of fear washed over her. If she dared to tell the queen about the secrets she'd found, Otto would undoubtedly discover it. Elsewhere, Vichy paced the halls in a panic, trying to make sense of the situation. She refused to believe Flora would ever work with the enemy. Her frantic thoughts were cut short as she looked up and froze. Otto had arrived, leading a stoic Flora by the hand, his face unreadable. Vichy stood frozen as guard Captain Elon placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. Otto, his grip firm on Flora's hand, gave a cold command. He declared the Empress was now under house arrest, and her palace was off-limits to everyone. As he led Flora away and the grand doors slammed shut, the onlookers whispered in fear. Was he hurting her? The nobles could only assume the Emperor's fury to be unstoppable. Filled with dread, Vichy clasped her hands together, desperately hoping for her lady's safety. The supposed house arrest was nothing more than a private game for Otto. Behind closed doors, a flustered Flora pleaded with him to stop his relentless teasing. Otto simply smirked, telling her they hadn't even gotten to the best part yet. He playfully held her down, challenging her to silence him with her hands restrained. Blushing but determined, Flora found a way. She leaned forward and pressed her lips against his, catching the Emperor completely off guard with her sudden and bold move. Recovering from his shock, Otto's surprise turned into a sly grin. He leaned in, whispering for Flora to remember that she was the one who started this. In one smooth move, he turned the tables, laying her down on the bed. A flustered Flora watched as he began to remove his shirt, nervously pointing out that people were right outside. Otto paused, a playful look in his eyes. He apologized if he got her hopes up, reminding her that he couldn't get any closer to a suspect right now. Otto pulled back, explaining that if he stayed too long, Duke Glask and the others would talk. A confused Flora asked why he bothered to undress in the first place. With a smirk, Otto confessed he couldn't help but tease her because her reactions were just too cute. He leaned in and placed a soft kiss on her cheek. As he got up to dress, Flora inquired about the nobles. Otto simply told her not to worry. He would handle it. Touched by his reassurance, she hugged him from behind. Still holding Flora, Otto agrees to her silent plea for trust. Later, he sits with his aides, Count Karl and Cecil. The imperial physician questions the Emperor's bold plan, admitting it's the fastest way to clear Flora's name, but also the riskiest. Count Karl reveals their inside source, a spy working right under Duke Glask. Unfazed, Otto signs a document at his desk. He assures them he won't put their spy at risk. Instead, he intends to make Duke Glask a deal that he will have no choice but to accept. Cecil understands the plan, but still has one crucial question. He asks the Emperor if they will continue investigating Her Majesty. Otto falls silent, a memory of Flora's heartfelt confession flashing through his mind. She had looked at him with such sincerity, wanting to become his real wife. A confident smile touches Otto's lips as he looks up at his aides. He declares that he has made his decision. He will trust the Empress, not because of evidence or politics, but simply because she is his wife. In the Emperor's study, Otto directly confronts Duke Glask. He reminds the Duke of his oath that he never switched the Empress's letter, then slides a document across the desk as evidence. The Duke is completely baffled, insisting he has no memory of such a thing. Otto calls for a man to enter the room. To the Duke's horror, it is Palomar, his own scribe. With the trap now set, Otto calmly instructs Palomar to remind his master what exactly that incriminating paper is. Palomar calmly laid out the facts. 3 days ago, Duke Glask had ordered him to forge a letter that would frame the Empress as a traitor. The Duke flew into a rage, shouting that it was nonsense before collapsing to his knees. He insisted his own scribe was setting him up, but Otto remained a step ahead. He coolly asked about the money the Duke had been embezzling for years, questioning if that was also something he never did. Glask's blood ran cold. He was completely trapped, and a desperate new idea began to form. Cornered, Duke Glask played his final card. He begged Otto to punish him but pleaded for him to spare a young lady named Ibelin, reminding the Emperor of a past promise. Otto was completely unfazed. He had anticipated this exact move. He calmly explained that framing the Empress would normally cost the Duke his title, property, and entire future. However, he then offered a twisted deal. He would officially spin the story that Glask had simply made a mistake during a poor investigation, born from concern for the Empire. Otto wasn't just defeating him, he was controlling him. Otto added a final, crushing condition to his offer. As an apology, Duke Glask was to hand over the mining rights in his Velos territory to the Empress. He paled, realizing the Emperor even knew about the secret iron ore vein. Otto's cold gaze dared him to object. Defeated, Glask quickly agreed. Later, arriving home, his daughter questioned why Otto had sided with Flora. He snapped, shouting for her silence. He explained that he was almost finished for good and warned her never to speak of the Empress again. As Duke Glask's daughter seethed, she realized her father's failure meant she had to take matters into her own hands. She resolved to deal with the Empress herself. Meanwhile, on the day of the founding anniversary party, a newly freed Flora relaxed in her bath. Her maids fussed over her, worried the stress had dulled her skin. They enthusiastically pampered her with oils and rose petals until she was glowing. After being washed 3 times, a maid suddenly panicked. She had forgotten to bring the special new cream for the Empress. As the maid rushed out, promising to be right back, Flora called after her, saying the cream wasn't necessary. Left alone, she relaxed in the bath and wondered what Otto was doing. Just then, his voice called her name. He stood in the doorway, already dressed for the anniversary party. He explained that he'd come to get her and, seeing the open door, had assumed she was finished. A huge splash echoed in the room as a mortified Flora sank deep into the bubbles, hiding her bright red face. Flustered, Otto turns away, telling Flora to put some clothes on. The only problem is they're outside the bathroom. Thinking fast, she spots one of Otto's shirts hanging nearby and decides to borrow it. After quickly slipping it on, she steps out from behind the tub, announcing that she's dressed. Otto glances over, but is left speechless. The damp, oversized shirt does very little to hide her figure. A smirk plays on his lips as he remarks that her new outfit is actually more daring than before. Suddenly, Otto closes the distance, pulling Flora tightly against him from behind. Startled, she calls out his name. He leans in, whispering that the party is about to start. He asks her to hold still, promising it won't take long. Before she can react, he buries his face in her neck, taking in her calming scent. Flora's face flushes as he murmurs that he just needs a little. Right at that moment, the maid cheerfully walks back into the room, stopping dead as she takes in the scene before her. The maid freezes in the doorway, stunned. She can't believe the Emperor is leaving a noticeable mark on Flora's neck right before the big party. Later, the flustered maid tries to cover the blemish, muttering that they should save such moments for after the event. She realizes a necklace is the only solution. As Flora and Otto make their grand entrance, guests admire her excellent taste. No one notices the new jewelry perfectly hiding the Emperor's earlier display of affection. As Flora and Otto share a look, party guests murmur amongst themselves. They agree that the imperial couple suits each other, especially now that Flora's innocence is proven. The Emperor seems to care for her more than ever. But across the room, another woman's eyes narrow with resentment. She believes she is the one who should be standing beside Otto. Consumed by jealousy, she clutches a strange vial, promising to wipe that smile from Flora's face soon enough. A sinister plan is clearly brewing in the shadows of the celebration. Otto leads Flora to the center of the ballroom for a dance. The guests watch, captivated, as the imperial couple moves in perfect sync. Onlookers whisper that they can tell at a glance their hearts are connected. But this public display of affection only fuels Lady Evelyn's resentment. Her smile vanishes, replaced by a cold glare. Turning away from the happy scene, she grabs a large golden goblet, ready to serve Flora something far more sinister than a simple party drink. Her toxic plan is officially in motion. As the party continues, Lady Evelyn finds a quiet corner to put her plan into action. She pulls out a small vial containing datura flower sap and carefully adds a single drop to a golden goblet. This poison is known to cause severe hallucinations. Her twisted fantasy plays out in her mind. Otto, after drinking the concoction, would lose his senses and turn on Flora himself. The thought of him causing the ultimate harm to his beloved empress brings a wicked smile to Evelyn's face. She finds the tragic irony absolutely delightful. As the party continues, some nobles raise their goblets, loudly praising Otto for crushing Pedania like an ant. Hearing her homeland insulted, Flora's face falls. Otto notices her distress immediately, and his friendly demeanor vanishes. His voice is dangerously low as he reminds them that Pedania is the Empress's homeland. The cheerful atmosphere freezes as the nobles stammer apologies, terrified of his reaction. Flora tries to ease the tension, but she realizes just how much power her husband commands. Otto simply tells her the men had too much to drink. Flora accepts the harsh truth, acknowledging her place as someone from a defeated nation. But Otto pulls her into a firm embrace, refusing to let her think so poorly of herself. He reminds her that her position is not one of a conquered princess, but of the Empress of Nordvane and his wife. Flora blushes, genuinely touched by his protectiveness. She thanks him, feeling her heart lift. Otto, glad he could comfort her, gently suggests she take a walk in the garden if the other nobles become too much. Flora decides to get some fresh air. She glances back and spots her maid, Vichy, sharing a laugh with the guard captain, Elon. Seeing them having fun, she chooses not to interrupt and slips away. Out on a quiet balcony, Flora admits to herself that she feels a little lonely. Suddenly, her solitude is broken. Two noble women approach with polite smiles, asking if the Empress is also enjoying the evening air. They introduce themselves as the wives of powerful marquises and offer their formal respects. Flora, unassuming as ever, tells them there's no need for such ceremony. The noble women approach with backhanded compliments. One calls Flora easygoing, while the other says she doesn't act like a princess at all. They trade fake apologies, but their smirking faces reveal their true intent. Flora tells them it's fine, but their words sting. She knows they're mocking her, but the truth is even worse. She's an imposter. A cold fear grips her. If Otto ever discovered her secret, he would be furious and abandon her completely. The ladies then voice their surprise that she has managed to capture the Emperor's favor. The noble women continue their veiled jabs, telling Flora that everyone assumed Lady Ibelin would be the Empress. They whisper that Otto has secretly loved Ibelin since they were children, only holding back for his brother. The news stuns Flora. She admits Otto always dodged questions about Ibelin. The ladies then mention lavish gifts Otto once prepared, implying they were for his true love. But a spark of doubt leads to a realization. She remembers Otto never took Ibelin to his special flower field. It all clicks. These women are intentionally trying to make her jealous. Flora sees right through their petty game. They want to push her into doing something that would make Otto hate her, but she decides to play along. With a brilliant smile, she thanks the ladies for the information, remarking how wonderful Ibelin must be. She even claims to be a little jealous, stunning the noble women with her grace. Just as the ladies offer fake praise, a frantic aide bursts onto the balcony. He shouts that the Emperor is having a terrible episode, and the hall is in complete chaos. Flora's calm expression shatters instantly. The hall descends into chaos as glasses shatter and guests scream in terror. In the center of the commotion stands Otto, his sword drawn and his red eyes cold and empty. He is completely lost in his episode. Flora watches in horror, trying to understand what happened. An aide rushes to her side, yelling a desperate warning. He explains that the Emperor can't recognize anyone and his dangerous urges are out of control. The aide begs her not to go near him, but Flora's expression shows she has other plans. Ignoring the aide's desperate pleas, Flora shoves past him and runs directly toward the Emperor. The aide screams for the Empress to stop, but she charges onward. She skids across the floor, falling to her knees right before the dangerous ruler. The tip of his sword points downward, stopping just inches from her. Otto looms over her, his vacant red eyes showing no sign of recognition. Flora has put herself at the mercy of a man who can't even see who she is. He remains perfectly still, a silent threat. In the quiet room, Otto pulls Flora into his arms, holding her close as he sits on the bed. He presses his face against her neck, seemingly desperate for her scent. Flora's heart begins to pound, but a surprising warmth spreads through her from his touch. She's stunned by how safe and pleasant it feels, as if she's melting into his embrace. Lost in the overwhelming sensation, a single thought crosses her mind. Could this be something more than just a cure for his ailment? As Otto holds Flora, she wonders if this is the night they finally become a real married couple. He then leans in, pulling her into a sudden, passionate kiss that leaves her breathless. But just as quickly, he stops himself. Internally, he admits he's already been too rough, and continuing would make him no better than a beast. He draws her into a gentle embrace instead, promising to stay by her side all night so she can sleep without worry. Nestled safely against his chest, Flora quietly agrees. Lying awake in Otto's arms, Flora replayed the chaotic events from the party. She couldn't shake the image of his menacing glare and wondered what had caused him to lose his composure so badly. Her thoughts were interrupted by his quiet voice asking if she couldn't sleep. Taking a chance, Flora turned to face him. She admitted she was worried and asked him directly why he lost control earlier. Otto's calm expression shifted, his gaze becoming serious as he prepared to answer her question. The scene shifts to Otto's conversation with his physician, Cecil. The doctor reveals the shocking truth. Otto's wine had been laced with datura flower sap, a substance Cecil explains causes hallucinations and was deliberately used to trigger his episode. Due to the chaos, finding the culprit is now almost impossible. Otto commands Cecil to keep this a secret. He reasons that since the attempt failed, the person responsible will surely try again. Back in bed, he looks at Flora, grateful that she helped him avoid the worst. He decides he can't tell her he was poisoned. It would only terrify her more. Sensing his hesitation, Flora tells him he doesn't have to talk about it. Otto decides to finally open up, explaining his illness started when he was just 12. In a flashback, he recalls a happier time. Though born to a mistress, his father and half-brother were kind. That peaceful life shattered when the emperor died suddenly, without a will. The court erupted into chaos as nobles argued over who should inherit the throne. Young Otto, caught in the middle, never wanted to fight his brother, unaware that a sinister plot was already in motion. Otto continues, explaining that while he never wanted to fight his brother, the nobles had already split into factions. To them, he was just an obstacle. Supporters of the crown prince decided to get rid of him using a dark curse, lacing his drink with it. Young Otto collapses in pain, terrified by what's happening. A sinister woman appears, informing him that he must be removed for the prince to ascend the throne. The curse torments him with horrible visions, whispering that the only escape from the endless pain is a permanent one. Refusing to give in, young Otto declared that his fate was not for her to decide. With the last of his strength, he shattered the ritual object, causing the sinister woman to collapse. Though the curse was incomplete, it left him with painful aftereffects. The crown prince's supporters sent assassins after him constantly. Following his late father's advice, Otto fled to the frontier. During the chase, his loyal guards were struck down, their final words a desperate plea for him to run and save himself. As the assassins closed in, Otto's remaining guards created a barrier, urging him to flee and never look back. But the young prince couldn't stop himself from glancing over his shoulder. Overwhelmed with guilt, he whispered apologies, blaming himself for their sacrifice. After losing everyone, he ran blindly, pushing his horse across endless fields. Exhausted and emotionally broken, he finally pulled the reins in an unfamiliar place. He had escaped, but now he was utterly alone, with no idea where to go next. Exhausted and alone, Otto finally collapsed. He woke up somewhere he could only describe as heaven, a vast field of flowers whose gentle fragrance brought him a peace he hadn't felt in years. In his delirious state, he saw a familiar figure with flowing red hair. He reached for her, believing she was an angel sent to meet him, but a part of him wondered if it was just another hallucination. His strength gave out completely, and he surrendered to the peaceful illusion, falling unconscious amidst the blooms. 3 days later, he would awaken elsewhere. Otto finally awakens, not in a field, but in a plush bed at the Gessio estate. His body is patched up, but his mind is still foggy. Staring at the ornate ceiling, he briefly wonders if he's actually dead. Suddenly, a woman's voice breaks the silence. He turns to see a figure with vibrant red hair, holding a bundle of flowers, happily exclaiming that he's awake. Otto's eyes widen. He recognizes her immediately. This was the same woman, the angel he saw in his vision before everything went black.